Greetings everyone, this is the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage. I am beginning this latest video with the camera recording held above. I'll have it on the tripod in a minute, but the tripod would not go tall enough to encompass what is arguably one of the most premium priced sewing machines ever made. You are looking at the incomparable, infamous Bernina Record 730, or Record, I'm not sure how they pronounce it. The reason I'm holding the camera like this is because the table was the super uber duper deluxe version, and in order to get it all in, I had to really stand back. I'm just going to kind of do a little flyover here for you before we sit down and look at the particulars of the machine. The first thing I wanted to call out was, of course, this came from the original owner's household, and it has an obligation of guarantee. That's in French, but anyway, it's basically showing that it is a warranty, bonded warranty. It comes with a instruction book, and it's a Bernina instruction book that it's for the whole series of these machines, and it talks about how to use various parts of the machine. And then, of course, there's the super large Bernina guide, and that's the ultimate for referencing how to use the Bernina. You can get PDF versions of this, but I like the fact that I have the originals. That's not unusual when you have a machine from the original owner. It was a one owner. I am only the second person to own this. And many of you who know this machine or have heard about Berninas will know that this is a part of a series of machines that Bernina began making in the late 50s, early 60s. They came out with the 530 and the 530 Record, and that was followed by this model, the 730, and then they would come out with an 830. And those are considered mechanical machines. Once you get into the 930, they begin, that model would have launched somewhere in the 70s, and that is the beginning of a lot of electronics use in sewing machines, but this machine does not have electronics in it. One thing to point out is that most of these Berninas originally came in cases, and I'm going to explain further why that might have been. But you often got, or you had to pay extra for, I'm not sure, this little caddy. And this caddy has lots of spool pins for holding thread or bobbins. I think you can put your thread back here and your bobbins in the front row. And then you have yet more opportunities to place items. If you look here, of course, we have 3 shelves. They're sort of swing out little shelves that hold accessories and items. And there are 2 more just like that, and it says Bernina on it. And let's go over some of what came with this machine, because it was loaded with accessories. And if you have ever purchased sewing feet for a Bernina, you know how expensive they are. The average price on eBay for a vintage Bernina foot is somewhere around $18 to $20. Some of them cost more and some cost less. They are incredibly machined with quality that I believe only Singer in their vintage era could come close to. You have, let's see, I'll go around here and kind of talk about each of them just a little bit, because I normally don't do this, but in this case, I think it's worth it given how much these feet alone are worth. So here we have a Bernina hemming foot. When we say Bernina, there are 2 types. There's the old style, which Bernina produced for quite a few decades, and then they switched to a different style, and they have adapters for those. But these are all the old style, and I'll speak more about an adapter in a moment. Let's see. We have a zipper foot. We have a ruffler right there. We have this is a decorative stitch foot, and it can also be used for a quilting seam guide, and I have another one just like it that has the guide, and here it is. And for those of you who quilt, you might find that useful. Let's see, we have, this is a cording foot. Looks like a zipper foot, but I believe that is for cording. We have a darning foot. And then we have another foot. It looks like a darning foot. It might be a variation. I'm not sure. I've been searching online. It's one of the more unusual of them. If any of you know specifically what this is called, please feel free to share there in the comments. We have an edging foot. This is a foot where when you're trying to get right up accurately along an edge for your seams, we have a pin tucking foot. Tucks were a really big deal in a lot of the fashion trends of the past. Let's see. Oh yes, we have a button foot. So I think 12 plus the general stitch foot, which is here in the machine. That's 13. Oh, and then I also have a special button hole foot. This is for making buttonholes. And of course it comes with a nice wooden block and a covered, this is a covered blade that you use, of course, to cut out your buttonholes once they've been seamed. And last but not least, we have a Bernina old style darning hoop or embroidery hoop, free motion hoop, whatever you would like to call it. And it's spring loaded and it attaches right to the machine. This particular attachment, sometimes you'll see them for sale and they sell from anywhere from $40 to $60 just for this piece. Now, there are a number of things that are unusual about the Bernina, but I'll talk about this Bernina in particular. Most Berninas of this era were sold in carrying cases. Those of this vintage, 1965, would have been typically in a green colored case, similar to this sort of lime. It's like a lemon lime color combo here. And it would have been sold in a carrying case, and you would have gotten a little deck, a little sewing deck that would fit around the free arm. And that is what you would use to have a flat surface for sewing. Now, Bernina was the first company to do a number of things. They had, and it's covered right now, but of course it's through the overhaul process. I actually took this panel here off on the side. It has a belt that attaches to this hand wheel, and then it goes down to a pulley, a small pulley. And then another larger pulley drives a belt that goes down to the pulley in the motor. Let me get around here to the side where you guys can see. And if you remember when I was going on and on about how much I love those Kenmores, that's a feature that Sears had their manufacturer copy in those late 60s, early 70s Kenmores. The reason that matters and why it was such an innovation is because it takes whatever amperage your motor has and it really maximizes the power. So the amperage of the motor here is not really, super high. In fact, it's not as high as some of the White and Kenmore motors, but they got a lot of power out of it because of that arrangement. And again, it was such a nice innovation that Sears thought it was worthy of one of their machines. Let's see. Another innovation to talk about is right here down by the foot. Let's set this down, see if I can get my fingers around here. Now, as many of you pointed out when I was working on the Kenmore, as many of you pointed out, the Kenmore has a little lever in the back. Oops, that's my take-up lever. They have a small finger here at the back, and you can pull up on that, and when you do, it releases the foot. And then you can, of course, scoot it back down to lock the foot in. And that was a great innovation at the time, instead of having to use the set screws that you're used to seeing on the side. And of course, Sears copied that feature as well. Let's see, one of the things I have noticed over the years is that most free arm machines, and this is true whether it's the Sears Kenmores, whether it's the Brother, the Genomes, they have really nice free arms and they work great. They tend to be a little bit wider and bulkier. The free arms on the Berninas of this vintage, along with the free arms from some of the Viking Husqvarna machines, those beautiful emerald green machines from the same period, they have the narrowest free arms that I have seen. And so if any of you, any free arm will be useful for most of what everyone's sewing. But if you were going to sew, say, I don't know, a dress for a child and it needed to be, smaller cuffs, you might find that an advantage. Let's see, what else to say about this machine? I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set this up on my tripod for you all. Now, the reason that I started the video standing away from this is because this cabinet that comes with this Bernina is one of the things that's so unusual about it. Bernina, like most companies, offered sewing tables and cabinets with their machines. That in itself is not unusual. They all generally did. But the cost of a new Bernina in 1965 had to have been incredibly prohibitive. And you also have to remember that by the time Bernina tries to start marketing and selling machines in North America, in the US and Canada, they've got a steep hill to climb. Yes, they are made in Switzerland, but no one really knows their name. They're a little company. And so given what the pricing would have been, which I suspect was very high, many people would go, and they already had a sewing table at home. Chances are it was a Singer or a White at that point in time. And so these machines, this particular machine, does not fit those tables. And so people would simply buy them in a carrying case, and they would use the little sewing deck that fits around the free arm, and they probably had this in addition to their other machines. But not this customer. The person that bought this purchased it, and I have the record of when it was bought. It was purchased at, I'll show this to you all. It was purchased at Bernina Sewing Center. It's signed J. Taylor, Yonge Street, Toronto, Ontario. So this was sold in January 1965, right? So it's 54 years old. And when you get that long ago, you have, again, a lot of people have sewing machines. They're using them at home, but they already have tables. Well, whoever bought this machine wanted the advantage of being able to sew flat, as many of you do on your machines. And in order to do that, they had to get the Bernina table. This table is the most super ultra deluxe table I've ever seen and I have ever had with a sewing machine. And I say that purely because of the width. So, for example, the width of my, I don't know if it comes up here, you can see over here, there's a walnut table that holds my, the second to the last table there in the background, that holds my necky. And that table is about 29.5 inches wide. No, that's not right. I'll have to get another measurement for you. I just measured it. It is 29.5 inches wide when it's closed. This table is 35 inches wide when it's closed. When you open this up and you have both, right now, as you can see, I have both sides or both parts of the lid of the table open, as if I was, ready to sew. And the total working area on this table is 69.5 inches. That is about 4 or 5 inches wider than you get on the necky table. And the necky table was a very fancy deluxe large table. Okay, I've got it set up. We've got a light that works, but I'm not going to need it today. And what I'm going to do is I've got it set up for a decorative stitch, and I am going to actually show how it works. So I'm going to start sewing, and I'll start slow. You can hear the sound. Berninas, like all machines, have a distinct sound. I'm basically going at a pretty slow, moderate speed here. See me moving the needle slowly. Now what you're seeing is, I'm going slow so I can hopefully not be overpowered by the sound of the machine, but you're seeing the machine use an internal cam as opposed to one that you add to make a decorative stitch, what they called embroidery stitches. I'll speed it up here. Now I'm going to change the settings. We'll go up here, and I've taken it off of its decorative stitch setting. I'm going to come back, change up here, switch the machine over for what we would call regular sewing, or straight lock stitch and zigzag sewing. And I'm going to put my little lever over here down and bring my stitch length and my stitch, I want my stitch width over to 0. I'm sorry, I want a straight stitch. Don't want to just show off the fancy stitches, but also show you what it can do for the majority of the sewing you might be interested in performing. Let's give a little angle here, a little bit better there. There we go. And of course I can back tack, just like with any of the vintage machines, the vast majority of those that I work on. Let's come over. And we will give it a chance to show off its little stitch, or short stitch, I should say. Now the Berninas that I have restored before include 1, 2, 3, 4. This is number 5. I have restored a total now of 5 Berninas. The first 2 were the 117 models. Those are the really dark green models from the 1930s and 40s. And I have restored 3 of this model. And Berninas are, by and large, in high demand. They were sold in smaller numbers than something like a Singer or a White would have been. And they command very high prices. In fact, if you go on to places like eBay or Etsy, it might shock you how much people will charge for these. And that just means, they describe them as running well. I have fully overhauled this one and spent quite a few hours because it had sat for a while. And so this machine has actually received its overhaul, and it has this very unusual, I'll even say rare, table. You don't see many Berninas compared to other brands, and you certainly don't see a lot of Bernina tables. So whoever purchases this is getting something very, very tough to find, believe it or not. And I don't say that often about sewing machines. So let's take a look. You can see all of my test stitching here. Let's turn and see if we can get some good light here so you can see it. Let's see. So you'll see right up here, you'll see that line of straight stitch that I did. Look how beautiful and consistent that is. You can see me changing the width and the length of the stitch to get this, this wonderful wave pattern. There are many patterns. And then I want you to really look at when I shorten the stitch length. Take a look at this. Now I have basically many of my Japanese multi-stitch machines, either with built-in cams or with cams you add, they can make decorative stitches, and they do a good job. They look nice. The only 2 machines I have ever found from the vintage era that can make decorative stitches with this level of precision are the Berninas, and then the other one is the Viking Husqvarna C series, like the C21s, those beautiful emerald green free arm machines. But outside of those are the only 2 that when I look at them, it really looks like embroidery, because it is. I mean, it's just that precise. And I just think that's interesting. I guess, every machine has something that it does extra well. If all you needed was a good solid straight stitch, you wouldn't necessarily need a Bernina. You could use one of those legendary singers that I go on and on about all the time. But I have to say that, when it comes to, and there's the other side. It's hard to see. This kind of a beige colored thread, but you can just see the precision in these stitches is remarkable. So if you are a person who is especially interested in embroidery or decorative stitches for your projects, this and those Vikings are two of the best that I've come across. And what else to say about this machine? It is so coveted, I guess you could say, by vintage machine fans that the only machines that sell for more than this are things like the featherweights. In fact, the 830s sell for more than these do, and then you have featherweights that are worth quite a lot. If you come across a featherweight 222 model, which is a free arm that was made in Great Britain, those sell for even far more than these do. But you are looking at one of the few machines that typically you pay a lot more for, and these are some of the reasons why. And as you can tell, it has that wonderful Bernina sound. Every sewing machine has a certain signature sound that it should make when it's running well. And this Bernina has the Bernina sound. It almost sounds like a clock, like a little tick-tock. That's to my ear. You may think it sounds like something else. But anyway, this is an incredible piece of machinery. It has lots of bells and whistles, but no software. This is how decorative and specialty stitches were done before the age of computers. Speaking of computers, one last thing to mention here is that many of you who have these machines over the years, when you got it in a case, as many of you have it, you had a foot pedal. And Bernina was one of the first companies to start using electronic foot pedals. They had lots of transistors and capacitors in them. And at this point in time, because they're over a half century old, some of those have begun to fail, and you can get them replaced. They typically cost a good bit to replace, but you won't have that issue with this model. This model did not come with a foot pedal. It actually comes with a carbon pile style control that is handled by its knee lever. So that's one of the really cool things about this particular machine, is that you won't have to worry about replacing those electronic foot pedals. Again, they can be done. It's not like you can't get them, but that's one expense you won't have. So thank you all for watching. I appreciate it. You don't see me do Bernina sewing videos that often, but here it is in all of its glory, and apparently came with quite a few accessories. So if you're interested in seeing this machine, let me know, and I can show you how to operate it, and also how to take the machine out of the table for transporting should you decide to purchase it. Thanks for watching, everyone.